Welcome, I'm Karen Field-Bullock, and this video is an extension of lesson number 16. In that lesson, I talked through a deep explanation to help you understand the people who get stuck in self-pity and constantly seek sympathy without judging them. Of course, I was referring to people who feel like a failure in life or in love because of the blows they've been dealt and who are trying to heal in a way that actually doesn't work. If your sympathy changes them and helps them heal, as it can when you're raising a child, that's great. But if not, these folks are using a strategy from childhood, looking for a parent figure to take care of them and make them feel better. To heal in an adult way, though, what they need is to give themselves sympathy by allowing themselves to feel sad, maybe taking the time to cry, without self-blame or self-judgment, knowing that they deserve to have their feelings. That level of self-love will give them the ability to pull themselves together and grow. When you're around a sympathy-seeking adult, they might just need a little sympathy, since we all do sometimes. If your sympathy helps them, that's great. But if not, they can begin to seem like an emotional vampire, draining your sympathies to fill themselves up with your positive energy. And the next time they feel down, they'll seek you out to do it all over again. How can you know whether your sympathy is supporting a real need or not? Just watch how well they actually grow, learn, and change after your wise counsel or kind words, versus how much they exhaust you and then come back the next time with the same poor me attitude, looking for you to prop them up again at your expense. The best way to protect yourself may be to just stop worrying about how bad they feel and turn your attention to making yourself happy. On another note, there's also a different type of sympathy seeker, one who plays the poor me card as a conscious manipulation. These people aren't stuck or feeling like a loser. They may be very successful in achieving many of their goals, but they play a poor me game to trick people into feeling sorry for them so that they can then turn around and take advantage or make a fool out of them. If you'll recall lesson number 9, where I talked about selfishness, these are people who, from a psychological perspective, may fall somewhere along the scale of sociopaths or psychopaths. Spiritually speaking, they are generally unevolved souls. To follow the spiritual path to true love, you need to understand this without being judgmental, but also without getting too close. Keep your distance and do not sympathize with them. It's my personal observation that these conscious manipulators rarely seek counseling or therapy, as long as they think their game is working for them. By contrast, the downtrodden person who seeks sympathy and manipulates others in the process without necessarily fully realizing it may well seek counseling or therapy to find a therapist who can be their mother or father figure. Whether such people can actually heal and mature in therapy hinges on their determination to change their lives, even to the point of seeing through their own games and stopping them. Second, I want to explain why I believe self-pity isn't all bad. Socially, the term self-pity usually has a very negative connotation, but a closer look at this emotional reaction shows it to be beneficial in some situations. Many people are intolerant of the perceived weakness of people who indulge in self-pity. These people, who usually view themselves as strong, often put up a wall and hide their real emotions from both themselves and others. When this defense is extreme, they exhibit a cold, intolerant edge to their personality. Learning to care for your own emotions starts young. When children skin their knee, If their mom or dad acts appropriately sympathetic while cleaning up the wound, they may and maybe offer a kiss to make it better. The child learns that their feelings deserve to be cared for, and that love is a natural part of the healing process. They learn to honor their own feelings just as the parent did, and then to move forward, clean up their own wounds, and recover. But when an injured child is told in an unsympathetic way, "It's nothing, don't cry," while mom or dad is cleaning up the wound, the child gets the message that sad or hurt feelings are bad and should be stifled. These children begin to shut down their own painful emotions and pretend they're okay when inside they're still hurting. Often this defense persists in adulthood. Children who don't receive even a moment of sympathy for their little hurts grow up to have trouble fully loving or caring for their own wounded emotions or the wounded emotions of others. Naturally, this affects all their love relationships, but none more than their relationship with themselves. Also, children raised by an overly emotional parent to the point of being dysfunctional may feel disgusted. Such a parent may also smother the child with dramatic sympathy for the smallest of things, which can confuse the child. In watching their overly emotional role model, the child may decide to be the opposite of that, and thus hold in their emotions in an effort to be strong. In extreme cases, these folks grow up to not know how to care for themselves emotionally and not show normal sympathy for others in all of their love relationships. Sympathy-seeking adults are more likely to have been the type who were starved for sympathy by unsympathetic parents and continue to seek the kind of sympathy they didn't receive as a child. Receiving a little sympathy and encouragement from friends and lovers is a way for adults to share their experiences and strengthen bonds. But adults who habitually feed off the sympathy of others lack an understanding of how to love themselves, or they may lack the will to do so. They are not bad or weak or inferior people. They just need to learn the steps involved in how to better love themselves emotionally and be willing and ready to give themselves sympathy first, rather than asking someone else to make them feel better. So to summarize, just as people become a social nuisance when they're stuck in their neediness and self-pity, and people who are conscious manipulators are socially repugnant, it's also true that people who refuse to ever pity themselves become hobbled by the cold edge of intolerance they develop, both in their closest love relationships and in the public sphere. A very public example of someone who wasn't allowed self-pity or sympathy seeking as a child is former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton, who ran for U.S. President in 2008 and 2016. During her second campaign, she told a touching and also revealing story about her childhood encounter with a bully. After being bullied as a little girl, she was upset and ran into her house to tell her mom what had happened. Instead of wrapping little Hillary in her arms and sheltering her with pity for even a moment, her mom scolded her and showed no pity as she told her to go out there and fight back. As a result, Hillary became a fighter for just causes, and that's a wonderful thing. But she also learned at that young age to stay tough and check her softer emotions so as not to let them out. Unfortunately, as an adult, that gave her public image the appearance of intolerance. Although during her presidential campaigns, she did come to show her softer side at times, the colder image was fixed in the minds of many. When people shut down a part of themselves in some way, such as their own vulnerable feelings and their childlike need for sympathy, they become intolerant and judgmental of other people who exhibit these feelings. Hillary's candid comment of some U.S. citizens as deplorables reflected her intolerance towards certain groups of relatively vulnerable people, people who were hurting in ways she perhaps didn't really fully understand. Although I've never met her, I view her as a nice lady. Still, I believe the sharp edge of her public image, stemming from her early experiences, had a dampening effect on public sympathy for her among some social circles. Now, to be clear, most adults try to keep their tears and self-pity private, and rightly so. This keeps others from getting too far into their personal business, and it spares others from unnecessary worry. But privately, I'd say a healthy dose of feeling sorry for yourself when something goes wrong is not only what people do naturally, but it's also a part of self-love. Allowing yourself time to cry, especially when you're alone, is just simply allowing yourself to feel the hit you've taken, whether it's a serious illness, a loss of status, an identity crisis, a rejection by someone important to you, or whatever it is. When you don't take the time to feel your hurt and sadness through a certain amount of self-pity, and you never share your experiences with loved ones out of the fear of becoming an emotional vampire, your only alternative is to suppress your emotions. That means that in the grief and recovery process, you're likely to be stuck in denial, stage 1 of the 5 stages of grief, set forth by Dr. Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, as we've covered in previous lessons. The third and final point I want to make is that when you feel sorry for someone to the point of telling them little white lies to make them feel better, this could be less loving than you think. What you might not realize is that other people in the room may perceive you as phony and will start taking everything you say with a grain of salt. Even the person you're flattering might sense it. This includes your lover. Friends and lovers may understand your thinking and your good intentions, but that grain of salt will nonetheless become a part of their filter for listening to you in the future. It can't even get to the point where they really don't believe much of what you say. Nobody wants to be unkind, but you don't have to be. There are ways to be tactful and honest with friends, family members, and partners. For example, when a woman asks you, "Do I look fat in these pants?" you can say, "Here, turn around and I'll take a picture." And then you can judge for yourself. If she says, "No, I want your opinion," you can compare the way she looks in those pants to the way she looks in her other pants. If she says, "So, you think I'm fat?" you can say, "That is not the issue. If you felt okay about yourself, you wouldn't try to put those words in my mouth. The issue is how you feel about yourself. I love you as you are, and I would love to see you feel happy about the way you look." When she asks you, on a scale of 1 to 10, "How do I look?" you can say, "Okay, I'd say 10 for you is the way you looked at our niece's wedding last year, and 1 for you is the way you look when you're sick. So I'd say today you look like maybe a 7.5. Or I'd say that little black dress is your 10, and that raggedy blue dress is a 1. So the green dress you have on, I'd say, is about a 5 or a 6. In this way, being honest is not insulting, but a clear assessment that gives the woman actionable information while reinforcing your trustworthiness. And if she asks, "How do I look compared to Christy Brinkley?" just say, "You compare like apples to oranges." You could also say, "You look like someone I love and she doesn't." Or, "She looks airbrushed and you look real." I prefer real. Some people in honest relationships go as far as to say things like, I think you're attractive, but so is that other woman or that other man. This may lead to a discussion about an open relationship. From what I've read, people who report being happy in open relationships or open marriages are extremely honest about their true feelings with all of their partners. And that, plus a lot of continuous maturity, is the better part of their formula for success. In a true love relationship, there needs to be room for privacy at times, but there's little room for emotional deceit. Trust is paramount for true love. Because over time, no matter how kind you want to be to one another, your true opinions of each other will surface, especially during any disagreement where one or both of you suddenly feels unloved. You'll be wise then to learn right off the bat how to phrase your honest opinions tactfully. That way you can preserve the high level of trust that is required to maintain the passion of a true love relationship. So that's it for this lesson. Next time, I will get to lesson 17, and I'll be talking directly about true love and how it transforms the people in it. I hope you'll join me then. Goodbye for now.